I know WSU Zoom can be a little bit tricky to navigate, but as folks come into the waiting room, if you can just admit them, that would be great. Thank you so much. Okay, welcome everyone. We made it. We're here. Feels like lifetimes since we've talked last. My name is Abba Kaiser. I am the project manager for the WSU Food Systems Program. We are a statewide program that works across all areas of the food system, and I am lucky enough to have stewarded the Cascadia Grains Initiative for the past 5 years. I'm just going to go through a little bit about our program. But before I do, in the virtual world, I still like to stay grounded in the dirt that I'm on and do a little land acknowledgement before these very important calls. This is my friend Walter McQuillan, who's the Makah chief here on the peninsula where I live. So this is just a shout out to Walter and the Makah people whose land I'm on, and acknowledging that without them, you know, we wouldn't be able to enjoy this area, Port Townsend area, Chimicum area as well, and to mention the Klallam peoples as well. So just like to stay grounded in where we are, even though we're everywhere now with Zoom. So big shout out to Walter and his family. So the agenda for today, I'm just going to go over a quick overview of the Cascadia Grains Initiative, and then we're going to look at the regional grain movement nationally. Hopefully we can get Mercy on the line here. I know she's trying to get in to talk a little bit about her work with the Haki Farmers Collective and how that has transformed into an initiative that we're starting to look at culturally relevant staple crop foods within BIPOC communities in Washington State. And an initiative that we are starting to seek funding for as well. We had many people on the call contribute to that application, and we're looking to continue that work here in the new year. And then we're going to move into announcement time. So this is a chance for you to talk about what you're up to, how you've been stewarding your own version of the regional grain movement wherever you are here. And prioritizing farmers to go first in those announcement rooms as well. So we'll see how many folks we have on the line. We might have to break out into different breakout rooms, but we'll see how that goes. So just a little bit more about me. This is our team. I work for Dr. Laura Lewis. My colleague Nicole Witham is not on the call today, but she's also works for the Food Systems Program as the statewide coordinator, and we provide resources across the food system in Washington State for viable farm businesses to optimize sustainable resources and to promote scaled processing and distribution. So we're all about using collective voices to solve collective problems, and that's part of what this call is today. So the Cascadia Grains Conference was born in 2013 from a desire to connect farmers, processors, and resource providers across the specialty grain economy in Western Washington. The WSU Bread Lab, the WSU Extension Pierce County, and Extension in Thurston County led the original effort. And 8 years, 2,400 attendees, 180 classes, 90 sponsors, and 400 instructors later, we were able to conduct a working group session report survey at our last conference that we were able to meet at, which we were able to do in person, thankfully. And we were able to kind of sample and source our values and our work plan really for the next iteration of Cascadia Grains. And this is who was in the room at the time. You can see that, you know, a lot of bakers are involved in this initiative. I know many of you are very familiar already with what we do, but this is just a snapshot of who was in the room for our working group session that kind of helped guide our mission and values. And what we came up with were these 6 values as a group. So equitable access, taste and flavor, cultural relevance, environmentally sound practices, domestic and local regional markets, and health and nutrition. And then in terms of which resources which would be most helpful for this group, there were several things that people voted on, but the number one thing, obviously, interactive face-to-face educational networking events, which we hope that this quarterly call can serve as a substitute for that. Obviously, there's no substitute for meeting in person, but we're going to continue to host these quarterly calls to feature some of the good work that's being done in Washington and across the region. We also have a regional grains discussion listserv. You can sign up on our website. Here's a tiny URL to go directly to there. It is an opportunity to continue the conversation of regional grains throughout the year with other folks who are across the Northwest. So please check that out if that's of interest to you. And I just want to mention that we are not alone in this work. We have lots of folks all over the nation who are doing very, very important work to connect regional grain economies. And here are just a few of them. I know a lot of you are on the call today. So big shout out to the Artisan Grains Collaborative, Philadelphia Grain and Malt Symposium. Really excited to have you guys on the call here as well. If you want to check out a regional grains map, you can check this out at graincollaborative.com/grain map. It's a growing comprehensive list of the mills, farms, bakeries, restaurants, and advocacy groups and educational groups as well that are working on regional grains. So we move into the call today. We see a lot of folks calling in from King County, followed by Thurston County and Skagit County. And then you can see there's multiple counties throughout the state that are also interested in this call and have signed up for the regional calls. So just to give you a sense of who's in the room. And again, with that, looking at professions. So we're really thrilled that we continue to see 16% farmer and producer engagement with this work. It's really important to us to center the farmer experience in what we're doing and to always have them centered in the conversations. So we also see a lot of bakers. We've ended up splitting them up into home and professional bakers. So the SHBs, as we call them, serious home bakers, are the next up in line, and followed by professional bakers, and then resource providers and advocates such as myself and other academics, as well as government and state officials. And you can see the other breakdown there. So I think we have our featured speaker, Mercy Kariuki-McGee, on the call. Mercy, can you hear us? Are you there? Let's see here.
Yes, I'm back here. Yes.
Oh, awesome. Hi, welcome, welcome. I'm so glad we were able to navigate that.
I know, I apologize for that. I have no idea why my Zoom on the last minute decided to zoom out.
You're not alone. WSU does not make it easy to get into a Zoom call. So thank you for making it work.
Thank you so much. Thank you for letting me join this call today. Again, my name is Mercy Kariuki-McGee, and I'm here in Olympia, Thurston County. And yeah, do you want me to take it out from here, Amber?
Yes, please.
Okay. Thank you for the awesome introduction. I was able to hear some of the work that you're doing and who is on this call today. So if I missed some of the beginnings, I'm sure you will share that with me at a later time. Awesome work that Amber is doing of bringing farmers together and helping spread the word about BIPOC farming need in our country, and bringing Haki to the forefront of this conversation. I know all of you've seen the movement of Black farmers coming up in the recent years. We just joined that movement ourselves, where we started out of George Floyd's protest in downtown Olympia, where we found ourselves finding other ways that we can actually dismantle racism. And we realize that farming is one way actually you can break those barriers by affording food to the people. You give them the power when you give them food and places to farm. I grew up in a farm, but we also grew up in an urban area. So I've enjoyed both ways growing up in Africa. So I know what that meant for my family and what it means to a lot of families around Africa where food availability is not always a problem. So what is Haki? Haki is Swahili for justice. We had to think a little bit about this name because we wanted it to kind of reflect the work that everybody has been doing around the country to dismantle racism. So Haki seemed to fit justice, and we are justice farmers who are trying to dismantle and decolonize farming and as well racism in our systems. And Haki is co-founded and led by myself and my daughter, who is very young, but also a very active activist here in my community. She couldn't be here with us today, but she's very much involved in this voice. We are fairly new. We are still trying to lay our ground, and we've met a lot of people in our community who are really helping us. People like Amber, trying to help us find who is who and who is doing what in our community. Because personally, I believe that if you're gonna dismantle racism, there's no way you can do it alone. It's a community effort, and it's a grassroots effort that we all have to do it together. So I have in my time in Olympia, I've been trying to work really hard with a lot of my allies to not only dismantle racism at the government level, but also at the grassroots level, where we've organized and we've done a lot of conversations with the City Council of Olympia and all the Thurston County leaders in our state. So I know this is one way that we can join efforts to try and move this conversation of racism forward and not backward. So at any time, if you have any questions about what I do and what you're doing, please feel free to jump in. But I'm gonna run. Amber, can I share my screen really quick? Okay, let me see if I can do this. And give me a minute while I try to find this thing here. Okay.
While we're getting set up, folks, feel free to introduce yourselves in the chat box. I forgot to mention that beforehand, just so we can see where folks are tuning in from and what your organization is. And also, if you have any questions for Mercy as well, you can pop them in there.
And I will try to answer any questions as I go. Obviously, Haki Farmers is a collective. We are trying to bring voices of Black and Brown people, disabled people, and transgender community. Haki is going to be primarily ran by BIPOC. That means at least 85 to 75% of our members are going to be people of color, disabled, indigenous, and transgender community. We want to inspire them to be able to go back and do what their ancestors have been able to do for generations. So we want to refer ourselves as Syrian farmers because that's what African farmers are. And that's what Africa is founded on, is farming. And our main agenda is to decolonize and reclaim farming and plant medicine, which was practiced by generations of indigenous communities, which our younger generation in the urban areas don't even know what that is all about. So we want to bring those methods back by working with the local communities of immigrants, indigenous community, to bring the traditional ways of farming back into our community and be able to pass that down to our own generation. Oops, did I delete that or did I move forward? What did I do? Okay. So a little bit of a basic fact about farming that everybody who is in farming should understand this. By 1910, there was 14% of farmland owned by Black people. Today, there's only 2%. 6.5 million Black people fled rural South to avoid the lynching and segregation. They were denied loans, there were campaigns to terrorize them, and they were refused to be able to register to vote. In the northern part of the country, they started attracting the Black people with promises of housing, better work, and better life. Today, we can look at the numbers of the USDA. In 2012, 6,609 compared to 2019, 45,000. That's not a number that we can really brag about because there need to be more. We all know that Black people are brought in this country as slaves and primarily to farm because they built the country through their farming and their backs. They are known to go for hours. They are known to work really hard. When they touch the dirt, they don't stop. I know this from watching my own parents. When we go to the farm, we work, and this has been known for generations on how Black farmers can do it. Today, 80% of those lost their farms to the white and the Caucasians. And we also know that much of the farming knowledge is grounded on the immigrant communities. They have a ton of knowledge and traditional methods that they brought along with them. So Haki is hoping to be able to take advantage of that. Our food system. Our food system is primarily built on colonization and structural inequality. We know that by looking at the numbers, there are very few Black farmers or very few BIPOC farmers who are able to have huge enterprise farms in today's farming landscape. The goal of Haki is to be able to remove those barriers and create a space so we can turn over the economy using our own traditional ways of farming, and maybe be able to have larger enterprises that can supply the food system like any other enterprise in the country. So the food sovereignty and the security of food in America is one that is being discussed by many, many organizations. By looking at the BIPOC, we know that they are mostly affected by lack of good food and affordability. And especially that is so true right now with COVID. The brown and Black communities end up having the higher rates of death or higher rates of infection on high blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity. We also know that in America, the white and the Caucasian demographic dominates most of the farming. They benefit from better funding from the government, and they have historically removed the Black people from farming because of the high interest of loans that farmers have to get. At Haki, we that if we give back the farm to Black and brown people, and we remove the barriers of farming, we can introduce and take care of this marginalized community. I don't know why my thing is very slow here in clicking. Oh, okay. So Amber and I have been discussing about regenerative agriculture and what that means. Growing up as a child, I remember very, very well watching my family move cows from one place to the other, moving crops from one place to the other. And I didn't understand why we were doing that, but that was a method that was applied across Africa. I remember watching the Maasais move their animals from one part of the country to the other. If you go in Africa, the northern part of Africa, you can see how the Nandis and the Maasais and the Turkanas move their herds from one place to the other. That is the form of regenerative agriculture, where they want to make sure that the land can come back before they overgraze it. So we know that this system is one we can continue here in America as well, if we give ourselves a chance to take advantage of what is already here in our community and what's already been brought over by thousands of, by the African Americans who have been here in this country. We can create systems that is more enriching to our community, and we can find ways to work with others to be able to provide the right system that we are looking for. As Ember was talking, we are collaborating right now with Ember to try and find ways to bring this education to our community, and to be able to bring foods that the immigrant community know that they can grow here and acquaint very well in our temperatures. As right now, if I want to find any kind of food that I have grown knowing, I would have to travel miles to find it. It has to be imported from Africa before I can even find it. And because of the scarcity of African community, we don't always know where that food is. But if we can introduce the foods in our own farms, then accessibility for this food can be much easier. And we can, and most of the food in Africa is always healthy. You're talking about the roots. You're talking about the grains like sorghum, millet. You're talking about the sweet potatoes and the yams. And you're talking about the good grains and the good greens that already grow there. We have one that can grow very well here, but we don't know how to bring it over. So we have to always rely on packaged food if we want to have any African style food. Also in Africa, we know that if if we can improve our methods here, we can go back and influence the African community who are trying to look up to the Americans or the developed countries to adapt to their way of methods of farming, which is actually hurting the soils and the productivities of African farms. So we want to set this example so we don't end up having the same problems that we have here in our own country. I don't have much to say, but I do know that Haki is ready to decolonize and reclaim food and plant medicine, and we are ready to work with you all to be able to do that. I'll be happy to take any questions.
Beautiful. Thank you, Mercy. And yes, please post any questions you have in the chat. It's just awesome to hear about Haki and how you and your family are working to transform food systems in the South Sound and beyond. And we're really grateful to be able to collaborate with you on this bioag proposal. Just so folks know, we submitted a grant for a little bit of funding to help get this initiative off the ground, which would basically look at culturally relevant staple crops within BIPOC communities. So by and for BIPOC communities, BIPOC farmers and consumers, BIPOC processors, and how can we also look at specific varietal adaptability in the Northwest, which is, I know, something, Mercy, that you all are really interested in looking at as well, with staple crops, but also with other vegetable crops as well. I don't know if you want to speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, from like what I found out, let's say, for example, where I am, there's a huge community of the Cambodian community down in my area here in Olympia. And last summer, I happened to just stop by their house and was amazed at some of the crops that they have there. And it's things that I've never seen before, things I've never tasted before. So I realized that it is actually possible to be able to grow some of the vegetables that the immigrant community know and use on a regular basis. They have like this big size cucumber, they have Asian watermelon. So these crops can actually acclaim to our temperature. I know like in Washington State, we have a very short period of good soil or good climate to be able to grow. But I was really amazed to see that in their very small porch area, they had about 5 different traditional plants growing that they use every day on their food. And this is food that is healthy for you. Here we always go back to either kale, we go back to spinach, and we go back to the basics that we know. But if you tap into the immigrant community, you will actually find out there is much more greens that is available and you can try, and you can use that to enrich yourself. The other thing that I would really like to explore is I like to cook a yam or an arrowroot, which is pretty healthy for you. If you call my family right now, they'll say, "What are you eating for breakfast?" Arrowroot, which is absolutely low calories, but very healthy for you. We don't have that here. But if I have to go all the way to Tacoma or I have to go all the way to Portland to look for a shop that will sell me a yam, and that yam, I have to know how to store it and keep it so it can last for a little longer. So being able to experiment this type of crops that can grow here or acclimate to our temperatures is going to not only improve the farming system in our community, but it's also going to enhance the livelihood of these immigrants who rely on this food for their own health. And they have to change and try to understand how to eat a hamburger every day, which is not what you're used to eating. And they still want to keep their traditions flowing through generation. So Haki is going to be working with mostly the immigrant communities, the indigenous community, to find out what crops do you want us to put in the farm so you can actually harvest and use, and you teach your children to keep that going. For example, I know we can grow coffee here because of the temperatures, but wouldn't it be nice to teach a child, how an American child or an immigrant child, what coffee looks like? They've never seen a coffee. They've never seen a yam. They've never seen cassava. So being able to actually teach them what these foods look like is going to be a big goal for Haki. And using their grandparents to come teach them these things. Some of them have never tasted a cassava because at the end of the day, when you come home in a busy day, you run back and make your quick pasta, and you don't include all the other healthy foods that could come in. We are trying to push those methods of traditional methods of increasing your turmeric intake, your ginger intake, your cumin, your pepper, which is really healthy for you, by the way. A lot of Americans don't like hot pepper, but it's really good for you for many reasons. So we are trying to bring these traditional methods, traditional medicines that have been used for generations, so everybody in the community can benefit, everybody. And hopefully that if we do that, we can actually access the market. If you try to buy a star fruit from any store, it's going to be too expensive. What if you have a farmer who can do that and you have it during the summer months? So, and another thing that I tell people, we have to eat like bears. Eat what's available. Store it up. Because if we only have 3 months of growing and we can grow something that is indigenous to other communities, and you have it, eat it. It's going to increase your health. It's going to be good for you, and you're going to travel through the world through food. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I think culture as a part of nutrition is a really hot topic right now that we're only going to see more of. And for this community on the call, grain farmers and grain and bakers and distillers and maltsters, I think that there's a real call to action, looking at specifically how the staple crop communities have been, because of the systemic racism and colonization that you've mentioned in your presentation, even more white than agriculture as a whole, because of the commodity of scale that's necessary to get to a profitable state, and because of the traditional information and how that's been passed down through generations. And so I guess before we go into breakout rooms, I just want to ask you if there's anything that you want to say to this audience that's very specifically focused on grains and staple crops, in terms of that conversation around decolonizing the grain system, decolonizing staple crop economies, and just where do you see this conversation going, and how do you see other people being a part of that?
Is that for me?
Yeah. No big deal. No pressure. No pressure. Just
well,
what would you say to the millennia of systemic
what I would say to
racism?
the millennial, don't be scared to touch the dirt. And actually, starting next week, we are starting our first programming with Northwestern Public School. In fact, after this meeting, I'm hopping into a call with the equity director. And our goal is we always say, get your heads dirty, get to know where your food is coming from. And while Haki is a BIPOC ran organization, we are not limiting ourselves to just BIPOC. We want to work with the community because I myself am a believer of amplifying the voices of everybody and being able to collaborate and being able to enhance our understanding. Because if my neighbor doesn't know why I'm a proud brown person, then they don't understand who I am. So we need to be able to touch each other and feel each other and understand each other and communicate, and not to question who are you. Come question who I am through food, because my food is going to make you travel a place you've never gone before. And it's going to allow you to actually explore in your own kitchen, not to fear. If we can all collaborate and bring our voices together, we can actually also remove the barriers of Black, especially Black farmers, being able to afford land. That is the biggest barrier right now. Ourselves, we are lucky because out of my collaboration and reaching out, we've been awarded a farm by Community Land Trust of Thurston County. That's coming sometimes in 2021. And that's a place where we can all collaborate and do all these experiments and do all this food that Amber and I are talking about trying out to see what can actually grow in this climate. And also taking that model and taking it outside Washington state. Can we be a state that sets examples for the others? Can we be a state that shows that even if we are primarily white state, we do work with our Black community and our brown community because it makes us rich, very rich. And that's where Haki is coming in. That's where you come in, is help us spread the word, come work with us, collaborate with us, and let's see whether we can actually get into your kitchen and make some cassava. It's that simple. And the complication of food is what is dividing people. When the prices are so high, and you know that those in the low income can afford to eat a star fruit. I don't eat anything that is more than $1. Haki is hoping that we can make food accessible to these low income communities and the Black and brown community. Anybody who touches our soil gets to eat for free. If we raise enough money, we make our food accessible to the Black and brown community. That's the goal. Food should not be a privilege. Food should not be a place where we get divided. Food is what brings people back to the table, like on Thanksgiving. So can food system be our Thanksgiving that brings us back together to the table? I think we all have a job to do, and we all have, if we are farmers, we know what it takes to farm. If you're an educator, you know what it takes to advocate for good food. And if you are a parent, you know how important it is to feed your children the right food. So how about if we made that food available to the community of color who mostly live in apartments, who don't own land beyond their steps? So Haki hopes to be able to collaborate with most of you to make the dreams of those who want to have good food, own farms, be part of this enterprise that is so much controlled, make it a reality. It is something that comes from deep from my heart because I grew up in a farm and I saw my mom farm every day. But I also know that my children don't have a farm. But I know that anything that we start together, we can do it. So I'm welcoming anybody who wants to collaborate with Haki. Any thoughts, any fundraising ideas on how we can get food to the community? And also, more than anything else, making it safe for Black and brown people to own land beyond urban area. Right now, most of the Black farms are mostly around the urban areas. Most of the Black farmers who have stepped away from the urban areas, they face hate. In fact, we have one farmer, my farmer friend, who has experienced so much hate. How do we remove that so we can have these farmers who are so critical in our economy exist in a white-dominated farmland? This woman has been harassed. She's been called names. She's been told to pack up. People have posted very, and I'm not making this up, which is something I fear. How do I know that when I get a bigger farm, we're not going to get harassed? We already know what's happening right now in Washington, D.C. Why are people there fighting right now? What are they fighting for? Why are they protesting? We are here trying, this group here is trying to level up the space, level it up so everybody is equal. They're out there saying, we don't want Black and brown people anywhere near us. Right now, the biggest protest we are seeing right now is because, and I'm not trying to make this political, but we have to call it black and white as it is because Georgia won and Georgia sent a Black person. Because there's always a Black person in the room, and a Black person is always a threat. But I want to let you know that we are never a threat to anybody. And I've always told people, I didn't come to this country to take over. I came to this country to make life happen, to work with you, to enhance our lives together. And that's what this group can be very strong in sending those messages of, we are here as farmers and we support all farmers because we support you farmers. And that's the biggest fear of any Black farmer, is how do you exist in a small pocket without being attacked? And for me right now, with the Black farmer who is being so harassed, I don't know how to offer that, because there are no laws that protect Black farmers or brown farmers. There are no laws set out there. So she's been out there fighting on her own for the rights for the water, making water rights more easier for farmers. Because if you're not on a stream and you have to rely on your ally to get water to your farm, they deny you that. She's been denied water rights. So there are things that we as farmers can start advocating for. One big thing is the water rights, protection of Black farmers, accessibility of that food, and looking up what Amber is trying to push here, cultural relevant food, so we can all benefit. And I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make it political, but when it comes to Black farmers, it always comes down to that level of what Black farmers have experienced and why they are so scared to own farm.
Absolutely.
So
Yeah.
so I feel like if we all team up and we rally behind the Black farmers, other farmers will say that it's not actually a threat. It actually enriches your community. If you educate one child in your family, the goal has always been that the whole family benefits. In Africa, we always, if you educate a girl, you educate a village. And that has been true for generations in the African community. So we can do the same. We can educate our neighbors that if a black and a brown person buys land next to you and is planting food that you don't understand, it's not an offense. Actually try it out. It could save your life. It could be the medicine you are looking for cancer or dementia or high blood pressure. So if we can create that space from our heart, we can take it in our community. And I hope that the work that Amber is doing is really touching a lot of people out there. And I hope we can take this message in our own if you own a farm, put these messages of BIPOC farming in your platform, so people get a little education, because what's lacking in America is education, and there's a lot of intimidation, and the intimidation is holding our economy, is holding us back as communities. We are not growing. We think we are growing, but we are really not growing, because we are moving back and we need to be moving forward. And farmers have the biggest role to play in that, because land is power.
Hmm. Well, thank you so much, Marcia. I just feel so alive listening to you talk, and I'm just so grateful for your involvement and collaboration in this project, and just so looking forward to what we can do together, and um, how we can support each other. There's lots of positive comments coming through the chat. It's just saying thank you. You don't need to apologize. Food is politics as much as culture, and yes, so thank you so much for your words and for your spirit and for the work that you're doing to elevate and lift up BIPOC farmers all over. So yes, blessings to you and your family. We're gonna, if there's a way that folks can get in touch with you, maybe you can post it in the chat so that they can email you and follow up. And if there's anything else you want to say that we can, we're gonna just take another minute here, but then move swiftly into our breakout rooms so that folks can do a little talk back to each other before the top of the hour.
I just want to say thank you so much for the work you're all doing. And when I started Haki, and it brings tears to my eyes, I didn't realize I waited 50 years to find a home. And when I got into activism, I didn't know where I was going. And then windows started happening. I met Amber. I met Mile McAvoy, who was the Obama administration director for organics. And I'm all in all these initiatives now. And I didn't know what it meant, but I saw a window of opportunity to to take something out of George Floyd and leave a tangible thing in Washington State and join all the other Black farmers. And really my job has been bringing our allies together. A lot of Black people go Black. I am a Black person who comes from Africa, where we are very cosmopolitan. We are used to living side by side with the British. And we had to kick them out of the highlands so we can have our land back. So I know how that is done. I know it very well because my father did it. But I do know that we have to work side by side, all of us. And that's what I'm begging you, to work side by side with the Black farmers and the brown farmers. So thank you, Amber, for really convening this meeting and allowing me to speak to these people. It brings tears into my eyes sometimes when I think of the pain that surrounds all of us. And even if sometimes we don't shed tears, I know a lot of us feel it deep into our heart when we see what our country is turning into. And it's a country that is so powerful, which African nation, I've always said, is a mother nation and is the mother of all nations. And now we are like, where is the mother of all nations? But we are the power. We are the voice, and we are the people who can change the landscape. Thank you. And I'll put my contact there. Please feel free to reach out to me and come see what Haki is about to do. Be part of it. We are in need of money right now. This is the African way. We start something with no money and we don't know where we are going. And we just see a road and we say, I'm going that way, and we follow it. We don't know where we are going, but we're going. And Haki has no money as we speak, but money isn't everything. I have met so many people, and I don't even care about money anymore. I just want to do the work. Everything that I've done so far has been free. The land coming to us, over 5 acres of land in the most fertile land in Washington State, is coming to us for free. So I didn't put money first. I put people first. And I have met such wonderful people that my heart is bleeding with happiness. And I just want to say a big thank you, Asante. I'll put my information there. Follow me, work with me. Let's go on this journey together.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Mercy. And just, yeah, so much more to say. I want to give folks the chance to communicate with each other in their own breakout rooms and just kind of do a little talk back. You're going to get automatically shuffled into a room. And what I'd love for you to kind of reflect on is just, how do you see, what's the next step for you in this conversation? What's the next step for you in your organization, whether you're a farmer, a maltster, a distiller? What's the next step that you're going to take to commit to this work and to commit to uplifting and centering and supporting BIPOC voices in the grain world specifically, and who you're going to reach out to? Maybe make it an actionable next step. What are your next steps here? So we'll come back at the top of the hour just before, just to say our goodbyes and to hang out in case anybody else wants to chat for a little bit. But I'll send you into the breakout rooms now, and just thank you again to Mercy, and just such an incredible moment in history right now to be chatting with you and hearing about the work that you're doing. So here we go. We're going into our breakout rooms, and I'll be calling you back at the top of the hour. Here we go.